other day, we tried to define what salvation was and how it affects your life today. We tried to do this by looking at how Yahweh rescued Israel from slavery in Egypt during the Exodus as documented in the Old Testament. We discerned three motives that drove Yahweh's decisions. Those motives were love or grace, mission, and presence. So let's see how the theme of love or grace works in the New Testament. A Jewish man named Jesus enters the scene during the oppressive reign of the Roman Empire. At this time, his fellow Jews felt Yahweh their God had abandoned them to suffer exile and subsequently be dominated by their enemies. Jesus tells his fellow Jews that through him, Yahweh was reconciling himself not only to the Jews, but to the rest of the world, including even their enemies. Just as Yahweh brought Israel salvation from slavery in Egypt because of his love for Abraham, so also Yahweh was bringing salvation to the world because of his love for Jesus the Messiah. But what does the world need saving from? Could it be that just as Israel's redemption was about slavery to someone, Egypt in this case, the salvation offered by Jesus is also about slavery to something or someone? Yes, it is. You see, the New Testament says that all of creation, including humans, is enslaved to two enemies, sin and death. Creation is not living in the freedom and mission for which it was created. The world needed a greater force to absorb the consequences of our sin, to break the power of these enemies and show us a new path of freedom to our mission. There was none fit to do this job than the Creator's chosen one, Jesus the Messiah. Now, you might have noticed we've already introduced the second theme, mission. So let's delve into it. In the book of Genesis, God creates a good world over a 6-day period and crowns his efforts with the creation of humanity on day 6. These humans are created in his image, meaning they are created to reflect his character. He then gives them the task of caring for the earth and for one another. But sin leads us to think we know better than Yahweh our Creator. So humans live in rebellion to Yahweh, in destruction of creation, and in violence and injustice towards one another. So, Yahweh's mission, motive for the world's salvation is to create a new community of people he calls the church, who are living according to the model of Jesus the Messiah. This model is centered on love for the fellow human, even to the point of dying for your enemies, just as Jesus, their leader and king. It is in this way that this community of people show the world the way that God really desired for humans to live. Note the pattern. Israel was saved by Yahweh's love of Abraham, so the freed nation can serve the world. The church is saved by Yahweh's love of Jesus, so the freed communities of Christians can serve the world. This is the goal of salvation, and this is what Jesus invites you and I into today. Which brings us to motive number 3, presence. Just as Yahweh dealt among Israel through the tabernacle and through the temple, he also seeks to dwell amongst Christians by the presence of his Spirit. His Spirit lives in us as individuals and as communities of disciples so that we can live the mission he has set out for us. But he has an even greater promise. The book of Revelation tells us that in the end, heaven and earth will be together, and God will live amongst humanity, rewarding the efforts of those who lived their lives in care of his creation and one another. And so, let's round it all up by saying this. God loves the world more than you can imagine, and through Jesus Christ, he has shown us how deep his love is. His mission is to save you from what enslaves you, so you know that by following Jesus' example with your fellow brothers and sisters, you will know what it really means to be human. And his promise is that he will never abandon you and will always be with you. Thanks for joining us today. Goodbye.